Literally, this is childish. Like the idea that you have an ethno-state or a religious state, if you're committed to any type of broad-based social, economic equity and civil society, it doesn't work. No matter how justified, right? Of course there's justification because of Jewish history for Israel. There's justification for Kurdistan because of Kurdish reality. There's justification for Pakistan. It's notable that Israel and Pakistan are both disasters. Israel not in the sense of, look, if you're a European Jewish background, you have a nice life there. If you're not, you are, even inside 67 borders, not a fully equal citizen. And the situation in the West Bank is, it is literally Jim Crow-like. And Gaza is, it's just an atrocity. So it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open-air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus. They killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that the electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship. And the question is rights or not. So that's it. It's not complicated.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of From Right to Red. My name is Craig.
My name is Paul.
And I think, Paul, we might owe our viewers a little bit of explanation, so I'm going to take the lead on this. We are back, as you all are listening to realize right now. We had a little bit of an extended hiatus. And I just wanted to, first and foremost, apologize. We had a lot of things popping off, and it would have been great to get some episodes out. But I want to explain as well. So what most people don't realize or don't know about, the ones that are closest to me know, is that on October 5th, I actually landed in Tel Aviv for my birthright. Those of you who aren't familiar, the birthright trip is, something that's extended to all Jews, and they're allowed to go back to go to Israel for a 10-day trip and kind of understand Zionism, understand the Israeli state. And in a weird series of like Mr. Bean-esque happenstances, I found myself accidentally conscripted by the IDF. And I had to spend a little bit of time over there. Luckily, I wasn't in any type of, dangerous position. I was part of the IDF cum sucking squad, which we were responsible for. If an IDF soldier goes down, we have about a 2-hour window where we can harvest their sperm and make sure that it gets back to their family at home, their wife.
As soon as they go down, Craig goes down.
As soon as they go down, and that explains really. You'll notice throughout the episode, I've got a little bit of a raspiness going on. I've got a little bit of throat issues going on, but I had to do my part, and so my throat's well-being came second to cum sucking for the IDF. So there it is. Now I'm back. Everything is figured out. I'm back in the States, ready to roll.
It's not much, but it's honest work.
It's honest work. So
someone's got to do it.
I was hoping, Paul, that you didn't see any of this reporting yet. Did you know that like the squad in the IDF that I just described is a legitimate squad in the IDF?
No.
I wish I was joking, bro, and I want everybody to go and Google it. There is a portion of the IDF that is specifically designated to harvest semen from fallen IDF soldiers to make sure that the sperm gets back to their wife so that they can keep the bloodline going. I wish I was joking. It's really bizarre. It's really strange. But yeah, Paul just Googled it.
You're not lying.
I'm not lying, bro. I'm so happy that over this past 2 months you haven't seen that.
Since the 7th, semen samples of 39 men.
39 brave warriors. And I'll
killed or murdered have been extracted at the request of the family. Who in their right mind is like that's their first thought? I've never heard of that in my whole life, of anyone being like, shit, he's dying, get his semen.
I didn't look deep into it, but like I couldn't believe it was a thing. I didn't even look deep into it. I don't know if any other military forces participate in this kind of insanity. But yeah, there it is. It's
Jeez.
real.
So I missed all that.
39 dicks later, my throat is aching.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, there it is.
That's way better than my reason for not being on. So I mean,
I'm taking cover for us, bro.
Yeah, I was just like a hobbit, just smoking the best leaves I could find, hanging out, chilling,
right,
shoes off. No, I mean, I don't know if we deserve or we owe a full, real explanation, but personal issues. Stuff happens, and we're back.
We're back,
and it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be fun
because we have so much to talk about now. It's never ending right now. Like we could go on. We could talk nonstop for 24 hours right now and not run out of material.
Yeah, and people would love us for that.
Yeah, that's totally what people really want. If there's anything people want, it's that.
It's 24 hours straight, right? I do. So I know we were planning on clowning the whole time, being as funny as possible. I talked to a lot of people about...
There's one thing we do have to get to first, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. I talked to a lot of people about this type of episode that we're putting out, and I tried to make the case that there's enough serious media about this conflict out there right now. I think there's a lot of room for some not so serious media about this conflict, and that's a gap that we want to kind of fill in there. And but I did want to a lot of people said they just wanted to hear a summary of how we feel. So I don't know if you're up for that. I have something that I just want to say about October 7th specifically that I think would kind of highlight my feeling about the conflict in general. And then if they want something more specific, we can go from that. And then maybe, if you wanted to alter or change something, you can add on to it at the end if you'd like, whatever we feel like. But so my thoughts on October 7th are as follows, right? It definitely was a terror attack. There were innocent civilians that were caught up in something that no innocent civilian should ever have to deal with. And there's never any like moral righteousness in that. But there is like understanding that can be found, and there are historical comparisons and and material realities that kind of take place that allow something like October the 7th to happen, and also are inevitable. Like if there are certain conditions in place, something like October 7th just becomes inevitable. So whether it's justified or whether it's moral or whether it's condemnable or whatever, kind of takes second place to the fact that the conditions were there for it to happen and nobody stopped it. Like
kind of like, what did you expect to happen?
Exactly. And I think
you put them in that corner.
Yes, exactly. And I think one of a good example that I've seen a lot of people bring up Nat Turner, including myself, the Nat Turner Rebellion. I've seen people bring up the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. I've seen people bring up all kinds of other things in the past, but there's one that I think I haven't seen that comes with a quote that I think will sum me up a little bit, and that's the French Revolution. The French Revolution, for those of you that don't know, the French Revolution, there was a period of the French Revolution early on called the Reign of Terror. And during the Reign of Terror, tens of thousands of people, many of them innocent, completely innocent, but members of a different class, were executed. They were guillotined, and there was a lot of death in a period of a couple of months. Reflecting on this, Mark Twain wrote a quote that I think really, really applies well, not only to the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror, but October 7th as well. So here it goes. There were two reigns of terror, if we would but remember it and consider it. The one wrought murder in hot passion, the other in heartless cold blood. The one lasted mere months, the other had lasted 1,000 years. The one inflicted death upon 10,000 persons, the other upon 100 million. But our shudders are all for the horrors of the minor terror, the momentary terror, so to speak. Whereas what is the horror of swift death by the axe compared with lifelong death from hunger, cold, insult, cruelty, and heartbreak? What is swift death by lightning compared with death by slow fire at the stake? A city cemetery could contain the coffins filled by that brief terror which we have all been so diligently taught to shiver at and to mourn over, but all of France could hardly contain the coffins filled by that older and real terror, that unspeakably bitter and awful terror which none of us has been taught to see in its vastness or pity as it deserves. And there's really no point in saying anything more, in my opinion. It is what it is, ultimately.
Yeah.
There we go.
That was not at all where I thought you were going with that. I didn't think we were going to end up in Mark Twain.
Yeah.
But I'm going to now read my favorite Mark Twain quote. It comes from a book called Huck Finn.
Yeah,
so,
it's at page 16.
But, I think you do sum that up pretty well, and as anyone would have already heard our intro that we're putting before this episode, that explains a lot of anything else you want to know about how I feel. Right. Because with my family, with my background, I understand the want for living there, but I do not think anything justifies what's being done to innocent people on either side. Like, it's never good. Oh, yeah, we forgot to start out with, we condemn Hamas doing terrorist attacks. Bad. We shouldn't do that. Okay. We're moving on.
I'll condemn the attack, I guess.
Like, I'll condemn that attack for the innocent people who died. But
yes, on their behalf only, just like I would do for Nat Turner, just like I would do for the Warsaw Ghetto, just like I would do for everybody else.
Yes, because it's just too many people right now assume that this all like came out of nowhere. In October, all of a sudden this started, and they're like, "Why would that happen?" And it's like it didn't start on that day. This has been going on for a while now, and
you know what else I don't like though?
There's plenty of sources for anyone who does want to go back to 1948. There's plenty of people who have talked about all of that. We don't need to get into the serious aspects of all of that.
Right.
But if you don't know, educate yourself. Like, just learn about it. Find out about the Nakba. See what that is all about.
Yeah.
And just, it's nothing justifies the evil that's been done, even if there's a justified reason for you wanting to live there. It doesn't mean you treat others the way you've treated them.
Right.
So that's kind of where I fall, really, is in that area of, like, you can't just keep treating these people like they're not human and expect them to just roll over and take it. Like, these are human beings. Most of them in Gaza were already refugees or descendants of refugees.
Over 70%.
They're just humans trying to live still, trying to not be wiped off the face of the planet. Like, so you don't love seeing innocent people, be part of all of it, but I also understand that if you're living in that type of situation, you feel like you don't have many other options. So there's plenty more serious talk that could be had about that, but there's plenty of other places to get that.
We
I want to laugh at guns by MRI machines, because like metal and near MRI machines is totally cool. Like,
talk about,
I want to laugh at shit.
We're going to do a serious commentary on, oh no, go ahead.
We do have to mention, though, because of how much we talked about it in the past, during our time off just collecting cum, we got to Craig's got the sloppiest top you've ever seen, in case you didn't know.
That's how I ended up there.
He should go pro.
They called in the special forces.
But our brothers and sisters in the UAW did some amazing work and closed out their strike while we were off. And I love to see them get what they deserve. Not, they won or they beat the other side. No, they just got what they deserve to have. And I love to see that. I am so happy for them. And I imagine there's going to be a huge uptick in morale in all of their plants, and people will be happier. They'll have better workers. They'll be more productive because they're happy. They're getting paid what they are owed.
And I can attest to that firsthand. I've got some family that are UAW members. Over the holidays, we had, the conversations about the strike, and I asked them directly about their wage increases. And the person that I spoke to had a $21 an hour wage beforehand on the line. And now their wage is bumped up to $35 an hour, and it will be increasing with cost of living every single year for the next 4 years. It'll be increasing.
I thought they got 7.
It's 4.5 because it ends the contract, which Sean Fain beautifully, masterfully ended. He put the end date for the contract right at May Day of 2028. So it'll be Labor Day, May Day, the actual Labor Day, May Day, which also, look, 2028 election year, May of election year. It's going to be beautiful. Yeah. So amazing foresight there. But yes, morale is way up for these UAW workers. The ones that I've spoken to face to face, they are loving it. Obviously, their lives are materially improved by that, and most importantly, these companies are not going to go bankrupt. Like we were right when we first had these conversations. If you go back and listen to our older episodes, we talked about the UAW strikes. All of these companies were saying, we literally cannot give into their demands because if we do, the entire company is unable to sustain itself, and it will go bankrupt. And yet here we are.
Yep.
They got their contract, and they got basically everything that they wanted. And no, trust me, nobody's going bankrupt. Look at the next quarterly earnings; they're going to be out of the way up. So,
and I've heard talk from the other side as well. The type of people who think Sean Fain is crazy, but I'm like, he handled that better than we have seen a union leader in a while. I feel like, as far as his speaking when he was in front of a camera, or like when they said that about, oh, we can't afford it, and he gave actual numbers of here's how much labor goes into the cost of a vehicle. Yep. Like, he had things ready, he had good speaking points, and I think that as much as people who aren't at that level and who are up higher, like middle management or management, might not love how that all went, I hope in time they see how it benefits everyone in the long run, unless you're, the 1%. But like, in the end, if the people under you, even if you're middle management, if their wages are going up, chances are yours will too. So I saw a lot of anger from that, from people in that area, or they were like, this is my first supervisor position, getting one up from that low level, and I'm stuck in between management and the people picketing. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's going to be a call for you to make inside. Like, which side do you want to be on? Who are you going to support?
Which side are you on?
And we all think still, I mean, hot take, I mean, not for you, but maybe for some people, middle class is honestly like not really a real thing. It's kind of just to make us
fabrication.
Think, like we can do that, but just so that then you feel like you're better than someone.
Yeah.
But really, it's still
divide and
that
conquer.
99 versus 1. Like, come on, guys. Like, unless
there are only 2 classes.
In
the world. Well, there's some subclasses if you get deep into Marx. There's only 2 classes.
There's some subclasses.
There's the proletariat, the working class, and there are the bourgeoisie, capital, and that's it. So
there are the people who produce and people who do not.
That's it.
And the middle class lie has been going way too long in this country. So
give it up for UAW.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
They did amazingly well. I know it was very, very difficult in that time for strike, but nothing worth doing is ever easy, and that was very much worth doing. So I hope everybody listening right now has been following closely the latest Israel-Palestine conflict, because that's all we plan on doing right now is kind of clowning about the current conflict. But I wanted to talk about, at least I wanted to get your take, if possible, on the Al-Shifa Hospital, which was like the first hospital bombing that got widespread media attention, where it had killed or injured nearly 500 people in the Al-Shifa Hospital complex in Palestine. You followed it pretty closely. What's your take? Was it a PIJ misfired rocket? Was it from Israel?
You're talking back then. You're talking.
Yeah, I'm talking first hospital.
We're not talking what just happened there.
No.
Because
did I say Al-Shifa? I'm talking Al-Ali Hospital. Ali Hospital was the first one. Al-Shifa we'll get into. That's the calendar.
Because I got some hot takes on that one.
I just want to give an update on it because I've been following it pretty closely, and maybe we won't even clown on it. But for those of you that don't remember, there was a hospital bombing that happened late in October. I think it was October 17th. And
the one that they claimed was a misfire from Hamas. They claimed it was a
misfire from Hamas. And Reuters now, as well as Channel 4 News, and at least one other, Al Jazeera, but nobody will trust Al Jazeera because it has Al in the beginning of it.
Because that's automatically scary now, right?
It's scary. You can't trust the Browns.
Those 2 letters are just terrifying when you put them together, man.
Right.
A by itself is fine. L by itself is fine. You put them together, ooh.
Yeah, very scary stuff. But they have all kind of claimed now that the video of the supposed misfire and explosion in the sky, the trajectory was from Israel itself. My take on the Al Ali hospital bombing is like, it's like Israel called to tell them multiple times before the bombing, you need to evacuate. We're going to bomb you.
Yep.
The doctor said
they said they would.
Right. The doctor said we cannot, like, we take an oath. We're here for our patients. There are patients here that are unable to go anywhere, and we will not leave them to die. And so Israel responded by bombing the hospital first. This is confirmed. They bombed it with what they call their roof knock, which is where they shoot a bomb through the cardiac ward that's like non-explosive. I know. So they bombed them that way to warn them, hey, we are going to bomb you. And then the very next day, the hospital's bombed. And suddenly everybody's like, who could have done this?
Yeah.
Who could have done this?
Who would have ever done it? Maybe the people that just said they were going to do it.
Right. And then they released this audio, like immediately. Israel releases, well, first of all, actually, immediately they had some of their highest, former government officials on Twitter taking credit for bombing the hospital, straight up saying like, yes, we did it, blah, 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 blah. And then the death toll starts coming out. And I think Israel's intelligence didn't realize that there were like 1,000 people in the parking lot that were there for shelter because they were, internally dislocated. They didn't have a place to go. So they were like, well, where would be the safest place, a school or a hospital? Not realizing that Israel doesn't care about that.
Or not remembering the white phosphorus on a school like 15 years ago.
But, so then the death toll starts coming out and people realize like, wow, this is an atrocity. Like hundreds of people are dead. And so they immediately backpedal. Those tweets get deleted. They release this audio that was supposedly two Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters talking with each other, saying like, oh, they're saying it was from us. Oh yeah, it was from the cemetery behind the hospital, yada, 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 all this stuff. And then Arabic speakers listen to that audio, especially speakers that are very familiar with Gaza and the slang that happens in Gaza. And they were like, this is obviously fake. Yep. This is so obviously fake. They're not speaking how people in Gaza speak. They're using words like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, like when they talk about,
like
which they don't call, like, just so you're aware, they don't call them Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. They call them the Reds or the Blacks based on like the headband that they wear. Like they have the slang for them, and that
they
kind
would
of stuff.
not call them by their full name like that.
No, especially because like these are the most surveilled people on earth. Like these people are the most paranoid surveilled people on earth. So there's no way that they would be like, it's the equivalent of like you getting on the phone and being like, hey, I'm trying to hire a hitman, like calling an operator and being like, I'm trying to hire a hitman to kill my boss. Like, you're not going to do that because you're not stupid. And these people are not either. So Al Ali Hospital, my take, obviously Israel. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You're wrong.
That's definitely what I think. And I don't think that Hamas would have enough firepower to like have an explosion that large at that time. And if they do, they're not using it on like one misfire and they're like, oh well, there goes our one big one. Like they don't have the weapons supply that everyone claims they do. Like they obviously have weapons, we know that, but they don't have to the extent that they claim they have. And they especially are not putting AK-47s that are nice and dusty into these brand new clean black bags that even after the place was bombed had no dust on them.
That's so funny.
Like we know they have weapons, we know they have guns, we know they have rocket launchers, but like, do they have giant missiles like that? If they do, it's not like they're using them willy-nilly. They have a bunch. Like, they're using them strategically, and they only have so much. So that one I believe too. I'm blanking on the guy's name who was on Majority Report and Leftist Mafia. Matt
Left Reckoning, Matt Leck.
Yeah, but I believe he on one of his podcast pages or something, they have like some of those screenshots of the tweets that have been taken down of them taking credit, and then they took them down right away. I'm pretty sure that's where I saw they actually had screenshots of people saved that. If anyone actually wants to look that stuff up.
And I
like
honestly,
we said, we're goofing off a little bit. So like, please, if any of this sparks your like curiosity, go look into it. There's places to look into it. It might, if you just straight Google search and your algorithm isn't ready for it,
don't do it.
It might take some digging, but
email us.
Because even
if you hear us say something you don't agree with or want some extra info on, send an email. I think you got an email sent up from right2red@gmail.com. I think it is. If not, we'll put it in the description.
Or you can always like, depending on what you're using to listen, you can. I think Spotify for sure has like the Q&A, or like you can just send a message.
There, whatever you want.
Feel free, because we know that sometimes you don't want someone to go over in depth on something you're not interested in, but sometimes you do. Like,
we'll take corrections too. If I say something wrong,
or
I'll put a retraction out.
Clearly wrong. I would rather know I was wrong and be able to move on knowing the right answer than to just be that idiot who keeps being wrong. Like,
I will say though that that Matt Leck, his evidence about the the Al-Ali hospital bombing, that's more compelling to me than like the ballistic stuff, because the problem with the ballistic stuff that we have in any conflict is that you have these open source, quote unquote, open source intelligence guys on Twitter, and you have all these people that like jerk off to combat footage that like wanna be like, let's talk about the trajectories and let's talk about the this is a 5,000 pound JDAM, blah 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 blah, like whatever, and you'll just get lost in the sauce, dude, because it's technical, it's and it's very easily manipulated by our military industrial complex. I guarantee you 90% of those quote unquote open source intelligence guys on Twitter are getting a nice fat paycheck from the national security establishment in our country in some form or fashion. So to me, like the evidence of, and I know it's what they call circumstantial evidence, but circumstantial evidence is allowed in court. It gets a bad rap, but it's allowed. It's the basis of most cases in court, and the circumstantial.
And usually that is like listened to more than like eyewitness, even,
which is horrible
because
horrible accuracy.
People's memories suck, even if they think they remember.
And the circumstantial evidence in this case points entirely to Israel. Like I said, they called and said, we're going to bomb you. They bombed them. And then they bombed them again after the warning bomb. It's like, that's the chain of events. That's just what, and then they take credit for it. And then they see the death toll and then they retract. And then they put out fake evidence saying it's not them, which was clearly fake. Like, it's just, I'm sorry. You create fake evidence unless you did something wrong. Like, there's just no reason to do that. You would just say, go ahead, investigate to your heart's content. Like if you were innocent about it. It's just whatever. So there you go.
And
IDF sucks.
And I'm at a point where, since we have confirmation of the first bombing, even if that one missile was a misfire from Hamas,
doesn't matter.
That doesn't excuse all the other bombings they did at the hospital or the roof knocking. As like everything they do, they have a way to say it that makes it sound less bad. Just like the mowing the lawn. Like mowing the lawn sounds like a casual Sunday afternoon, but
Have a
mowing
beer,
the lawn,
mow the lawn.
yeah, but mowing the lawn there is a very different thing. And if you don't know, essentially that's just been over the years a casual term for when Israel decides, you know what, we should just go in and fuck some people up, take some out. There's too many. Just mow the lawn a bit, you know, get rid of a few. Like, and it's that casual to them, like a human life being gone. They're just like, yeah, just mowing the lawn Sunday afternoon.
I think Norman Finkelstein on one of his many interviews. If you guys don't know Norman Finkelstein, just do a YouTube search for Norman Finkelstein.
He'll talk really fast for you, and it won't be hard to listen to him now that he's old. But I will. That actually wasn't that bad. I kind of sounded like him. But I will say he knows probably more about the situation than any living human on the planet right now.
100%.
Because he dedicated, 3 decades of his life?
4 now.
Or 4 decades of his life
to
just this topic. So if there's anyone to at least hear out, even if you don't agree with them 100%, if there's anyone to at least hear out about the situation, it's him. He's studied it for a living for 40 years.
My first correspondence with Norman Finkelstein was in 2005. I emailed him.
Wait, because correspondence? You have spoken.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So my first correspondence
with Norman Finkelstein. I am collecting your semen.
My first correspondence with him, it was in 2005, and I had just watched some video. I can't even remember what it was. Some video about him. I don't think it was American Radical, because I don't think it was out at that point. But I'd watched some video of a debate of his, and I wasn't knowledgeable at all about Israel and the occupied territories. So I watched this video, and it was like, what, like what? This is going on, and I don't know anything about it. And I had a real nice back and forth with him, email exchange. I found his email, just I don't know if it's still publicly available, but he's in my contacts now. But at the time, you could go to just go to his website, and his email is right there. So I was like, I'm just going to email him and see what happens. So I emailed him. We went back and forth a little bit. I had questions, and he was so open to answer them for me. I asked about when he was going to be next in for a talk, and he put me in contact with somebody who was setting up some talk at way back.
Did you go see him?
I went and saw him. We spoke. We talked. We exchanged phone numbers. What I found interesting about, or what I found sad about this whole thing was I saw an interview, and I haven't emailed him or corresponded with him in a long time. It's been many, many years, but he was on an interview. I can't remember which one it was after October 7th, and he was talking about how he had given up on Gaza.
Oh, I saw that.
And it was so sad because he literally was like, I've dedicated 40 years of my life to this, and 2 years ago I had given up. And when I saw that interview, the very next morning I emailed him again. He hasn't responded. I don't know if his email's changed or whatever, but I just had to reach out to him and be like, Norman, we've spoken, over the years. I don't know if you remember me, but honestly, his conversations with me in 2005 are what shaped a lot of my political future in a lot of ways. He was definitely there when I was first kind of moving through that pipeline. So I wanted to reassure him that even if he feels like his life's work, which is Gaza, his life's work is Palestine, even if he feels like that's a failure, he needs to understand that there are thousands of people like me who have seen his work, who have corresponded with him, and it has made them who they are today in a lot of ways, and it has shaped a better future hopefully for some type of freedom for Palestine. And I think I see that in this conflict more than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've followed Israel-Palestine since 2005 very, very, very closely. And I've never seen this. Before October 7th, I had never in my life heard somebody say the words Al-Nakba, ever. like out loud to me in person. Besides the usual suspects. You go to a talk about Israel Palestine. Obviously, if you're that deep in it, somebody's going to say it. But a normal person, a normal a normal human being that isn't so online. And now almost everybody knows what the Nakba is, Al Nakba is, and
I mean,
that is it gives me so much hope.
Like, just for me to be transparent for a minute, I have known bits and pieces about the situation. Like, I would say what I knew most about was when there was shit going down with Syria, that and Lebanon, because I remember the only reason I knew about Lebanon was just someone I went to school with. I mean, I don't know how handy you want to be with the bleep button. But like, he was Lebanese.
Say it.
I asked like about it, and just that was all I knew, was like a little bit of like, oh, some bad stuff's happening. A lot of people are seeking refuge in other places.
Yeah.
Here's the part you might want to bleep the name, but like his uncle was, and he made sure everyone knew that. And he was the reason I met that man. And I love authors. I don't like having heroes, but instead I like having people that I would love to have conversations with. And he was one of them.
Yeah.
And
speaking of Lebanon, real quick,
he was great
to Hezbollah.
Yeah. But like, so I knew like these bits and pieces of things that have happened nearby because of Israel. Like, especially the Syria one was the one I knew about, when Israel just decided, like, fuck it, let's bomb them too. Like, I mean,
which is happening right now too.
There's more to it than that, than them just Israel, saying, fuck it, let's bomb them. But like, that
Israel literally just struck Syria yesterday.
Essentially, that's the idea. And then yesterday, yes, we saw that. So like, I knew those bits and pieces. I knew the history of Israel because of my upbringing. Right. And I literally, at one point in my life, probably could have named the kings. And when it split in two states in like 500 AD, like at some point I knew about that history, but I didn't know about, I guess, really from 48 until now, what's really been happening. Like, I knew those couple conflicts that happened on the side, but I didn't really understand, like, with my American upbringing as well, it was like, it's always portrayed as there's these two countries that are together. The two-state solution is something I heard a lot, but I didn't really understand it deeply. And good old Norman is a big part of why I understand it to the way I do now. Yeah. I've watched him do multiple debates that were hours long now. Like, I've probably in the last month and a half, almost been 2 months since October 7th. Holy shit. But in that time span, I've probably listened to at least 20 hours of this man talking. I especially liked Brace Belden, speaking with him very recently, which maybe, if you listen to that as well, maybe his assistant who's doing all of his stuff for him now saw your message and will pass it on to him.
Hopefully.
But he's another one on that list now of like, I don't love having heroes because of freaking Chomsky. You know what I mean? Like, to have someone built up and then, so I try to look at it as like, I don't have to lose everything else he did. Yeah. I just disagree with him on this. So it doesn't mean he's my hero. It just means he's someone I would love to talk to and learn more from. But there's also going to be times I disagree. There's imperfect allies everywhere. Yeah. But like Phailistín, man, he knows the topic, but he does a good job of calmly explaining things rationally to you. And I see a lot of people in these interviews doing things that, like, I don't know if I think you and I both did like debate and stuff in high school. I don't know if you did Model UN as well.
I did not do Model UN.
Oh, you're not nerdy enough. I know. But like, oh man, nothing about any of that stuff that they do with the reactionary, I'm mad and you're crazy. None of that is beneficial to the situation. And as bad as our school system is, they even taught us that. Like, you need to respect each other. You have your own time to speak, and you have discourse. You discuss your ideas. You explain yourself when the other doesn't understand. But so many people debating Norman have just gone instantly to rage.
Yeah.
And it's like, that to me just screams that they're out of answers other than, you're starting to prove me wrong, I'm mad.
Right.
Like, but he explained so much to me that like I even said in the beginning, even if there is just cause for them wanting to live there as well, I understand Israel is like in the Jewish history prominently, but to go about it in the way they have is disgusting. To do the evil they've done is disgusting.
Yep.
And I just can't agree with that part, as much as obviously we all make Jew jokes, but like, they should have somewhere they can live without being persecuted. But that doesn't mean they have to persecute someone else to have it.
Yeah, like
there's other ways we could do it.
Right. Like Michael Brooks said in the intro that we have here, of course, there's justification for Israel because of Jewish history.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's justification for a million things. And absolutely, Jewish people have gone through unbelievable amounts of trauma that nobody could ever comprehend or understand. Absolutely. Granted, docket, boom, I'm on the record. That does not ever excuse creation of an ethno-state, of an apartheid system, of
a racist
literal
state. That's
right.
Apartheid essentially means it's a racist state. It's built around one race.
There's literally places in Israel where you are stopped, like Hebron. If you're in Hebron, in which I guess was technically like West Bank, so but still, there's spots in Israel. Let me just be more clear. There are places in Israel where you will be stopped walking down the street and questioned about what religion you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you answer Jewish, you can go down one side of the street. And if you answer Muslim, you can go down another side of the street. And while the conflict itself is not based in pure religion at all, the expressions of how the oppression, kind of bubbles to the surface, they turn up in those ways. The same way that, like, during Jim Crow era in the South, it wasn't explicitly about like, were you a former slave, right? Which is really what they were trying to do, which was like keep that slave class under class, right? It wasn't explicitly about that, but it was about whether or not you were black, which was close enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing, So you just can't have it's just impossible to have any type of real equality, democracy, social justice, economic justice in an apartheid system. It's just the way it is. And no matter what justification there is for Israel as a homeland and a safe place for Jews around the world, no matter what justification their history provides for that, it does not allow you to create that type of state. It just doesn't.
No,
it's not right. So,
I don't know if you just saw my face connect dots. I don't know why I haven't thought of it this way, and I'm sure I'm not the first to think of it this way. But you bringing up Jim Crow, bringing up America, I'm wondering if that we know. I don't know if you've seen how age really affects how people in America view this right now. Like, there's a huge divide in who supports which side.
Yeah.
And I'm almost wondering if it's still that idea of manifest destiny. So that whole idea of like, oh, it's so instilled in those generations of like, this is our country, despite the fact that there's still reservations with plenty of native people living on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's still that idea of like, no matter what, they have a justification for why this is now white people's land.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if how much that mirrors what's happening there, is why it's so easy for that generation to stand by it, of like, well, it's because that was manifest destiny of God literally wants us to have this. Like,
Yeah.
we are meant to colonize the world,
Mm-hmm.
is what they thought. So it mirrors that so much of like, God wants us here. Like,
Yeah.
we are meant to take this land and be here. I don't know if maybe that's just my brain doing a weird connection, or if maybe that's why it resonates.
What your brain
because
is connecting.
that is a big gap of like, my generation and younger doesn't love the idea of manifest destiny.
Yeah.
That generation still thinks that way of like,
Right.
we're the greatest country and we deserve this.
What your mind is connecting is the settler colonial project, and there's been settler colonial projects over time. The United States is one of them. Israel is another. Apartheid South Africa is another. British India is another. British East Africa is another. And I just had this conversation the other day with someone, and I was talking about how the real point of tension in this entire conflict, it doesn't come down to religion. It comes to settler colonialism. And and religion is just a intersection that changes the like output, and you would call it, whatever, the output, and that works enough for me. The religion changes what the output of settler colonialism as the input does. But if you change the religion, or you change the ethnicity, or you change the geography, but you keep the settler colonialism, what you end up with is something akin to apartheid South Africa, British East Africa, the United States. Like those little things like religion, and a lot of people have this stuck in their head that like this is a religious conflict. When you just tweak them slightly, those little variables, you end up still with an oppressed underclass that leads to violent resistance, and it just expresses itself differently. So in Palestine, because there's that religious intersection between Judaism and Islam, what you end up with is radical fundamentalist Islamist extremists that are leading the resistance. But if you tweak the religion to Judaism, or if you pull the religion out and say, we're going to do ethnicity, we're going to do Judaism or Jews as an ethnicity, and Germans or Aryans as an ethnicity, then you end up with something that looks like the people that were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Or if you tweak it to black and white, you end up with something like apartheid's America in the South. Or if you tweak it to Indian and white, then you end up with something that looks like the United States Project. Like those little intersectional pieces you can always tweak. The root is the settler colonial project. So everybody that says like, what's the solution? If you're still asking that question, you gotta figure this out. You gotta understand this. The solution is removing apartheid, removing the settler colonial project, creating equal democratic rights for everybody, no matter what their ethnicity, their religion, their background, their family. Like once you get there, then it doesn't matter what religion the people are. It doesn't matter what ethnicity the people are. There won't be violent resistance. There won't be these kinds of things. And to really put a pin on that even further, if you look at like before 1900-ish Palestine, you'll see lots of primary sources that show Arab Muslims, Arab Jews living, cohabitating together beautifully. There was no terrorism. There was no fighting amongst themselves. I'm sure there was tension, because of different religions and ethnicities. Like that exists everywhere. But it wasn't what we're seeing right now, which is insane.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, is that all these little intersectional pieces are important to understand the character of what we're seeing right now, but they're not what describes the actual substance of what's happening right now. That is dominated by settler colonialism. Boom, period.
I love getting you on those rants.
I'm sorry, dude. I just talked for way too long.
I said I love it. Like, because also, do you remember when I said, before we do anything on this, it was literally October the 8th, maybe, and I was like, give me more sources than what I already have to learn more about what's been going on. And the first response I had to you, do you remember what my very first thing I said after looking into it for like a whole day? I remember I spent an entire day off that I had just
digging,
hours and hours of digging. Like sometimes when you're feeling it, you just get lost. And I remember texting you and just saying, well, it seems less religious and more about settler colonialism. Do you remember that text?
I remember now.
I said that. And I was like, this, because it's not about religion. When you look into who started Zionism, even wasn't even
Theodore
religious.
Herzl he was an atheist.
And honestly, like I think we've touched on religion before, of like, I am for it if it makes you a better person, if it makes you happy, if you feel whole, like, then go for it. Like, being religious is for you. Like, but I don't think you can ever use a god to justify murder of other people. Like, then you got the wrong god if that's what they're calling for, is like, just wipe all these people out. And like, it's clearly not based off of a Jewish god and the Jewish text. Like, it's not based off of that.
No.
They use some lines about how, they're bringing the Messiah, this and that. But like, in the end, nowhere in there does it say, and then God said, if anyone else is living there 2,000 years from now, go ahead and just kill them all.
Kill their kids.
kill their kids, and then put them in an open air prison, and then randomly show up and pull their crops out of the dirt, break the kids' bones, just to rough them up a little, make sure they know, like, your God is the one that put you here. Like, no God would say that. Like, I don't, like, any religious text I've read, I have read a terrible English translation of the Quran. I've read a lot of the Torah, and I have literally read the Old and New Testament front and back twice. Because of private school. Thank you very much. But then there are also verses here and there, like I believe it's in Luke, where Jesus even says, like, those people who denied me, bring them in front of me and slaughter them here. Like, so there is a bit of it. But for the most part, I don't think anyone's benevolent God or whatever would be like, you know what? Yeah, ethnic cleansing, do it up. Like,
do it up, dude.
It doesn't sound reasonable to me at all to even put a God behind that. Like, even if that's not my religion, like, how horrible of you to try to justify that with their God. Like, God wants us to do this. Even if God wants you there, he doesn't want you killing everyone else who's there. Like, that.
And then people will ultimately say, like, well, what about Hamas? And what about Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Like,
who created Hamas? Who put Hamas into power when Hamas didn't want to run for the election? Who told Hamas they should, and then funded them and trained them and gave them their weapons? Anyway, sorry.
It's the bottom line is, the only reason Hamas has any power is because they are the only ones willing to resist. And that to a Palestinian, whether it's a Palestinian, and there are Armenian Palestinians that live in the West Bank that are Christian. There are Palestinian Christians that live in Gaza. To a Palestinian, they see somebody willing to fight and die for them. They don't care about the rest of it. So if your ultimate end goal is how do we get rid of Hamas? How do we get rid of PIJ? How do we get rid of the Al-Qassam brigades? The answer is simple. The way to remove their power is to remove the occupation. Like, that's the only thing. Like, there's no Palestinian Christians that will be behind Hamas if they are given full equal democratic rights in what is now known as Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories.
Half, or I think 60% of Israel doesn't even stand behind Netanyahu. Like,
right.
And they haven't for a long time. It's not like just since this, they're like, you know what, I don't like what he's doing. There's been a lot of their population has not liked him for a long time.
Very long time.
They do not love that man. And he's a psychopath. I get why. Before we get into the next hospital, though,
Al-Shifa,
can we do a humanitarian pause?
Pause for drinks?
Can we do a humanitarian pause?
Yes. And look here. Yeah. Look here. We found in the cupboard cans of soup. Inside cans of soup, Hamas fighter.
All right.
Let's with that being said, let's move on to the I'm gonna have it cut in right on that. We're gonna talk about the Al-Shifa Hospital siege, which
siege. What a word. It was on a bunch of doctors.
Dude, seriously. Like,
what a siege.
So much funny shit.
Those nurses didn't see it coming.
If anybody listening to this, if you haven't gone and watched like the walkthrough videos from the IDF after they quote unquote captured Al-Shifa, definitely go watch it. Otherwise, you're not going to understand anything we're talking about. But
wait, before we laugh at the funny parts of that video, can I also just say there are sad parts too among the laughs, where in the background you see actual doctors trying to help actual ICU patients in the background of them just being like, look at this stuff we found in the hospital. And they're like trying to
pushing stretchers covered in fucking dust from the bombings.
So yes, we're laughing at the silliness of this video. And maybe we'll even find a good clip of the video to link for people to watch it.
Yeah, maybe I'll insert some of it. We'll see.
Because really, I mean, we're watching them do a walkthrough of this quote unquote hideout, or no, it wasn't a hideout. They call it a hideout now.
They call it a hideout now. It was the main Hamas headquarters, according to the IDF.
I'm sure Craig knows this, but I imagine a lot of others don't. They talk a lot about these tunnels underneath.
The Hamas tunnels.
Do you know who built the Hamas tunnels?
Of course. They were
know, right?
Of course. You know.
Okay, because I imagine the average listener won't, because I just found this out like a week ago. Yep. Who built those tunnels? How do they know for sure that there's tunnels under there? Because motherfucking Israel did it themselves. They built that shit.
And this destroys their argument in so many ways. They built those tunnels decades ago when they were occupying Gaza, and they were using them as a military operational outpost. Yeah. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you?
It was their military outpost. So now, just because it was theirs 20 years ago, they're like, oh, they must be using it as their fucking central headquarters now.
Not only that, but all right, what is the justification? What is the justification that Israel gives to, and to be clear, I want to be very clear at this point. Up to this point in the war, Israel has attacked over 27 different medical facilities, and I'm including like 11 ambulances in there, because when you're in Gaza,
a medical facility in Gaza.
When you're in Gaza, anybody with a bandage and some Neosporin, like, that's the most medical care you've probably seen in months, you know.
Possibly a fucking decade.
And also, like, what's the moral distinction between bombing an ambulance and bombing a hospital? Like, sure, you want to get into the weeds about it. I'm sure there's some whatever, but it's disgusting either way.
Yeah.
So up until this point, Israel has bombed like 27 different medical facilities, including 11 ambulances, and their justification for doing that, Paul, you'll know the answer to this. What is Israel's justification for bombing a hospital or a school? What do they always say? It's Hamas is there, right?
Well,
and they're using the facility
using them as human shields.
Right? So wait.
Isn't that what they said in 2006 when they dropped white phosphorus on a school?
For sure. But like, let's just take that at face value. Okay. If there are military outposts in hospitals, that makes those hospitals legitimate military targets, right? According to Israel. I disagree, but according to Israel. If that's the case, and they were using Al-Shifa Hospital as a military headquarters decades ago, in my view, and I'm just following Israel's logic here, that means any hospital in Israel is now a legitimate military target for Hamas to strike. So just before we even get into them, what they found in the hospital,
you should
understand
if Hamas did that, it would be obviously outright terrorist attacks.
That's terrorism, dude.
You can't bomb a hospital.
Yeah,
Can you imagine how
crazy?
disgusting that would be if Hamas bombed a hospital?
Dude, are you raining down white phosphorus on your school? Gross.
Bro, like, how disgusting. They can't do that. Only the white guys can do that.
Yes. There we go. That's really the distinction that's playing out.
It reminds me of that good cartoon of only I can do war crimes, and it's an American flag, and it says, oh, and maybe the kid too, and it's Israel.
Yeah. Right.
We've gotten some good art out of this, and I love that. As much as memes have become a joke and like this and that, it has become a good way. Like, that's always been a thing. Cartoons and newspapers were political a lot.
Political cartoons.
Like, this is beautiful, watching us actually be able to put more than one point of view out there in one picture, because I've even showed Craig a few things that I have been sent by just people of what the other side is saying. And it's like, if they're going to say those things that are clearly lies, but we can actually tell truth through one image, like, that is amazing. And I love seeing that. Some of them have been hilarious. Like that one. But like, that gets the point across of like, oh wait, we're condemning all these war crimes, but like, they've been doing them for decades. Like,
right.
So we should probably condemn that shit too, right? Like,
right.
It only makes sense.
Only fair.
Like, I'm all for condemning killing innocent Israelis if they're innocent people and they get killed, of course.
Definitely.
But I am for that only if we're going to condemn it when someone else does it, who's a different color to an Arab person. Like, it has to go both ways.
Look at October 7th, right? So let's say, I think the initial final total was 1,400 innocent civilians. Now they've revised it because it's down to like 1,200 because apparently, like, whatever, the details don't matter.
Yeah,
1,200.
All the other numbers on the Palestine side have been low counts.
But like, okay,
weird.
So Israel's response to 1,200 Israeli citizens, innocent civilians being killed, is the only solution. The only answer is Hamas must be destroyed and dismantled. So let's use their logic again, like we did with them hiding under hospitals. If we use their logic again, let's go back to Operation Protective Edge. Let's go back to Operation Cast Lead. How many thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians were killed in those conflicts, many of which, were started, the ceasefires were broken by Israel. So it was like them launching the attack, just as Hamas launched the attack on October 7th. If we're being consistent, that means that the IDF must be dismantled and destroyed the same way, right? So look, I am all for it. If you want, I'll co-sign right now with the most far-right Zionist person you can find. I will co-sign right on the dotted line. If they say the destruction of Hamas is warranted, and also the destruction of the IDF is warranted, co-sign. Let's wrap it up. Game over. Like, conflict over. We're done.
That is just, it's wild to me how so many people just look past everything Israel has been doing.
Yeah.
Or they even don't want to hear it. Like I know some people that you even want to try to tell them, like, well, but what about when Israel did this? And they're like, oh, no. Like, they don't even want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I think it's partly like we've been hearing in this, but like, we've been hearing in this country for years and years now of people who are like, I'm just done with politics. Like, people just want to be done with having to go through all this shit we've been watching for the last 10 years. It's been wild. Like, we're watching shit that, like, I don't know, we had that gap for a while after World War II where everyone pretended like there wasn't conflict going on everywhere, even though there still was. But, like, the U.S. was brought up to feel like everything's chill now. Like, so we're watching all this shit go down from Ukraine, like,
which they called it the end of history.
Oh my God.
That?
Yeah, like,
after,
did you see
after the wall fell? They called it the end of history. Like, that was it.
Did you even see that too? Ukraine, what's come out now about how, like, the war could have ended, or like ended right away.
Oh, I knew about that. I've been arguing about that since the start, because it was 2 months in. Not even 2 months in, Boris Johnson went and fucking blew it up. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, okay. I know, because you're the one that told me. But, like, I meant more so, did you see it's coming out? Like, people are talking about that right now.
Thank God.
That's what I meant. Like, because, we knew about that.
Yeah.
But, like, it's coming out right now. I think it was even the Washington Post or something. Like, it was like one of those big ones in the U.S. even had something about it. And I'm like, hey, like a year late, but hey.
Well, I mean, the funny thing to watch is, like, literally go look at Ukraine coverage before October and after October. And if you don't see, like,
everyone's like, wait, what's Ukraine?
Right. The funniest thing I saw was an article yesterday or the day before that was like, it was the some envoy to Ukraine who was saying, like, we won the offensive in spirit and in mind, like the counteroffensive.
Spirit and in mind.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, they're really trying to just, like, put a bow on the Ukraine conflict so we can move on to Middle East again. It's sad. You got to read Noam Chomsky. You got to read Manufacturing Consent, and then you got to watch the media before October and after October. And if you're not completely black-pilled after that, I don't know what to tell you.
And then, like, I don't know, like, a few years ago, just pretend like Noam Chomsky doesn't exist after that. Like, don't look into anything more.
Do not read Noam Chomsky, any news article about Noam Chomsky after 2022.
Like, just pretend he died. It's like the Mandela effect. Pretend he died in jail like 10 years ago.
I'm just going to be outright with it, all right? I think my man's a pedo, and this is the world's second explicitly anti-pedophile podcast, so we have to cast off Noam Chomsky. I'm sorry.
Back to that fucking hospital, though.
I know, dude. So they raid the hospital.
In that video, though. So we kind of said, like, what they're doing a walkthrough is pretty much all we said. If you haven't watched the video, and they're doing a so-called raid or siege.
What was your favorite part of the video?
My favorite part, for sure, is the guns behind the MRI machine.
Yeah.
Hands down, because I noticed right away the bags that the guns were in were brand new, crispy clean, but everything around it was all dusty because they had been doing a siege. Like, they bombed the fuck out of that place. So, like, did those bags have no dust on them unless they came in after the bombing?
Right.
And then it's also like, I have family who has more guns than that in their home right now.
Right.
You're like we live in an area that's pretty conservative. One of those bags is what I have.
Right.
And there was maybe 2 bags.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like it was insane that they were even saying that was a lot, but also
did you see the BBC piece on the MRI? Did you watch that BBC piece? I'll send it to you later.
No.
And I'll link it. I'm going to have so much shit to link.
Also, if anyone knows a single thing about an MRI machine, what does the M stand for?
Right.
Magnet.
You're
not going to hide fucking live ammunition. They said there was grenades in there. You think they're going to put live grenades next to a fucking MRI machine?
Like,
are you
I
insane?
get that people like think of Muslim people as like less than human. But they're not. They're actually human, and they do have a brain.
Come on, dude. Like, if you're gonna make some shit up, at least fucking be better at
the BBC
dude.
Video on the MRI. Yeah. So here's the situation too with the journalists. Like the journalists were only allowed in hours after.
You mean the journalists that are still alive?
Yeah,
they haven't killed yet.
Yeah, if you notice, there's something very particular about all the journalists. The 67 more than in World War II journalists that Israel has assassinated in this conflict. They're all a very specific color.
But Hamas is hiding behind them too.
I know, probably
they're in the hospitals and with the journalists.
So the IDF
inside
allowed
of the babies. They're sewing them up into the babies. There's Hamas soldiers sewn into the babies.
I had a bit where it was like a Hamas soldier was like strapping himself with babies.
They're like duct taping them around him.
Yeah,
like he's strapping dynamite to himself, but instead as babies.
The BBC was allowed in, and they actually they did some deep dive, which I was pretty impressed with, because normally the BBC is just a complete schmata. But yeah, I agree.
I love that you just said that.
Oh yeah, yes. I'll bust out my Yiddish here every once in a while.
Oh Jesus!
But the BBC. They did some decent work on this. They looked at that hospital video and they saw the dude's watch in one of the MRI clips. And then when they were allowed in, they realized, going back and looking at the footage, that they were allowed in the hospital hours after that video was taped, probably about 3 hours after, based on the dude's watch, right? And what they noticed when they walked over to the MRI machine, that their videotape of it, was that there was a completely different configuration of guns. There was a different setup that had been put there. And so even the BBC was like,
people are fucking idiots.
What's going on? Yeah. And they like reached out to the IDF for a response, and the IDF was like, oh, well, we just like kept finding more. And it's like, if you found more, why would you be like, oh, I found this AK-47 in this soup can over here. And so I'm gonna bring it to the I'm gonna bring it to the MRI machine. Like, that doesn't make sense. Their answers don't make sense because they're making it up, folks.
I saw this baby in the ICU, looked like he was fresh out of surgery.
Yep.
Opened those sutures back up, found ammunition.
Yes.
Boom.
the reason I decided to double check, the baby had a green headband. So I'm sorry. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
Legitimate military target.
Yeah, that means he's not getting sucked off when he goes down.
Exactly. My favorite part, though, was the calendar.
You read my mind. I was just about to say, as I very Jewishly, how do you feel about like the calendar that's up there? How do you feel about the calendar?
Dude, this guy, I swear to God.
They got a calendar though.
They got
the proof because there's a calendar.
I'm in a lucky position on this one, but this fucking guy walks over straight up in his video, walks over to a fucking calendar written in Arabic that literally just says like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's it. Whatever is in your mind about a calendar, that's what was on the wall.
Like
right?
a calendar that you would find in a hospital, like maybe like marking things down of maybe who's working or, something going on in that
that's
room.
even the best part is there's not even any actual names on it. But the guy's pointing at it and he's going like, this is a calendar that shows it shows the names of the Hamas fighters that were here in the hospital that were guarding hostages. No,
Jesus.
It didn't say that.
You
look at the calendar; it just said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
It says the days.
And in the blackout, remember the big East Coast blackout that happened?
Yeah,
I was working in a hospital at the time. I was in food service, but a lot of people don't know this. When
I didn't even know that about you.
When you're in
food service in a hospital,
I know when you're in a hospital.
Who are you?
I know I'm an international man of mystery. When you're in a hospital and there's an emergency situation like a blackout or like Zionists are bombing you, what they do is they go into like
equally scary things.
Yeah, they go into emergency protocols. So I was in high school still, but I was working in the hospital, food service, part-time. It was like a high school gig. And because they went into emergency protocols, I was not allowed to leave the hospital. So I was stuck in the hospital for over 24 hours. And one of the first things that they did when that took place was they set up emergency shift schedules. And they hand wrote them. Because it was like
maybe on a whiteboard up on the wall.
Yes, because it was like
possibly.
It was like we need to keep track of like who's here, who's working. We're out of power. Like we need to know what's going on. And a hospital, it's very, very, very important that everything is documented as much as humanly possible for people's safety and for like understanding and for like a look back retrospective on what happened during the emergency. So like that's the first thing that happened was okay, we're putting up the schedule. Yada, yada, yada. Here's the days. Here's when it started, all of that. And I was stuck in the hospital for over 24 hours. So to me, I see this calendar that started on October 7th. It did. I'll admit that fully. That calendar that he pointed at the wall started on October 7th. And I go, okay. And yeah, so October 7th was an emergency situation. So we need to get like an emergency schedule set up. Like there's nothing nefarious about a calendar on a wall. Like there's no way you can spin that to me. It's so stupid.
Like maybe not anyone under like 35 these days, but go to your parents' house. There's a calendar on the fucking wall. Go anywhere in the fucking world. There's calendars.
You'll see that my mother has a calendar on the wall, which makes her a legitimate military target. Bomb that bitch.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's been tough to watch at times right now because it's the same thing we talk about all the time of going through the optimism and pessimism. Like you go back and forth because sometimes I'm so like engaged in one view, like all my media is coming from a certain perspective at this point.
Goyim
and then yeah, absolutely. But like, and then I have these times where I'm like one day I texted you, oh, I should have grabbed the beanie. I texted you like, oh, I'm gonna just pop on Tim Pool today, like see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And like, and then the pessimism comes because I see that, and I know how many viewers he has, and I know people in my life who like are very not on the same side as I am. Like, so sometimes I'm like, okay, a lot of people are getting it. I see a lot of people at these rallies, like, and a lot of people standing up. I see a lot of Jewish Americans,
Jewish Voice for Peace,
and saying, "Not in our name." Like, I get so optimistic, and the next day, you hear something, and you're like, "Motherfucker!" Like, what hope do we have? But days like today, I like to have the optimism because, as much as this country is going through it too. We have our own issues. Think about it even when we were in middle school and high school. The fact that you and I can have this conversation and put it out and maybe spark interest from other people to start looking at the world in a different perspective or just investigating things on their own. Like that those are the things I try to remind myself of like, it seems insignificant on the days that you're feeling down, but then on some days you realize like, at least I can do that. Like, it's something.
Yep.
And I can crack a few jokes. We can have fun. We can laugh at how ridiculous this all is. Because if you're like me right now, drives to work and back, like whenever I'm on a break, I'm bringing in media on this conflict that's happening. Like, so it's good to have the release, to laugh at it, to have someone else who like realizes looking at that fucking calendar is insane. Like,
insane.
Like, there's people that you might be surrounded with for days at a time that are like, yeah, did you see the calendar? They're hiding behind babies. Like,
listen, I'm going to give you guys a pro tip. This took me years. This took me years to figure out. And if you're just like a budding person who is just getting into leftism, this is going to save you years of bullshit. If you in your life see somebody talking about like how nefarious that calendar is or those tunnels are, don't debate them. Don't try and talk to them about how yada 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 is like, oh, you know, like I just did with you guys that are listening and explaining how calendars fucking work.
Because they're in reactionary mode. They're in reactionary mode, so your conversation will go nowhere.
Those people need to be mocked. And it's very simple. It's as simple as being like, oh yeah, dude, your phone's got a calendar, so I guess I'm gonna fucking blast you. Like, it's silly shit. Like,
right?
Like, just like you need to, in order to counteract this type of nonsense, you need to really expose it as completely fucking nonsense. And you can't get that by debating around it. You just got to be like, here's
you
something
have to show how ridiculous
it is. Yeah, exactly.
And a big part of it is also like, especially like you said, if you're just butting into this, if you're just starting, like, you might not be at a point that you even should debate someone.
No.
Because when they start getting angry and yelling because they're in reactionary mode, you need to have not only the information from the other side, but a way to present it to them that makes them like
the tactics,
see how insane it is. Like, and you have to have that ready. So when they say something, you have an actual rebuttal that makes them stop and think,
right?
Instead of just get more mad. Because if they just keep yelling, it's pointless. Like,
right?
You know, so you have to point it out so ridiculously obvious like that. Like something of like literally, you might even have to say like, oh, okay, so even if they killed babies, that means now Israel should be killing all these children in Palestine. Like, you might have to say it that blunt to them. Like, either side, it's dead fucking kids. Like, and you might have to put it that bluntly to them. And if you're not ready to have anything backing you, it's not
just don't engage.
It's not worth it to try, because when they yell and get heated, it'll just make you mad if you don't have the right answers.
Yeah. I tend to think I'm pretty good at debate. There are people that are not and will never be, and that's totally fine, because everybody can just mock somebody. You know, it's a great equalizer. Just be like, dude, this is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous.
That is so crazy, because that might even make them stop and go, wait, they're literally laughing at it. But probably 90% of the time they're going to be like, this motherfucker's laughing at me.
Yeah, and it's not for them. It's not for them.
Who cares?
Like,
it's for
if
you.
It's one-on-one, then it's for you. If it's one-on-one, it can be for you, or you can just like be like, you know, dude, I'm not going to engage, right? But if you're in a group of people and you don't want to debate, or you don't feel like you're comfortable debating, like
see that.
The mocking works. It's not for the person you're mocking. It's for all the other people in the room that are like, oh yeah, like, I got a calendar. This guy's an idiot. You know, like that's how you sway the room. You know,
that's like, as much as
inside
I want
baseball.
We all know what has to happen. Like, we don't have a choice in this. They're giving us two shitty options all the time. Like, eventually, if we laugh at enough, get people to think about it deeper, we won't have to listen to fucking dumbass people like them. I mean,
dude, you know how I just
the amount of clips of Joe Biden talking about Israel when he was like I guess only 140 instead of 180.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, when he still had some dark hair. But like, have you seen some of his rants about fucking Israel,
Zionism?
dude?
Not, of course.
Not just the one where he says, like, oh, if there was no Israel, the U.S. would have to create an Israel to protect their interests.
Which is very telling.
Which he did say that, but he has plenty of them where he goes, like, in front of Congress.
Avowed Zionist,
like, he goes as a senator up, and he just, like, he looks like he's losing his shit. Like, he kind of looks like a mental patient because he's just like, do you guys see this? This is insane. What could be happening? Like, and he's like losing his mind. Like, do you guys even believe this? And I'm like, this does not look like a reasonable, rational man. Even in his so-called prime, he was fucking nuts. And all
he's
for
always
Israel.
Been nuts for Israel.
100% for Israel. And what he says now, where people clipped it out of him saying, like, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist or something along those lines. And like, he's been saying that shit for years. Like, years. He has been over there sucking that cum out for fucking years.
A lot of people don't know this, but the IDF Cum Suck Brigade actually was started by Joe Biden. What else are you gonna call them, dude?
Yeah,
like, let's be real.
CSB, the CSB for short. Yeah,
the Cum Suck
Brigade. We need to make a hat. Our first merch round. A hat is
that's merch for sure. IDF Cum Suckers. For sure, dude.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I actually believe that George W. Bush flew every one of those motherfuckers over that fence in Palestine.
Yes.
He was inside all of them. He personally flew.
In this house, we believe in science, in liberalism, and we believe that Joe Biden personally sucks the cum out of every single IDF soldier.
I've been seeing a lot of shit lately. A lot of horrible shit, honestly. All the real niggas want Palestine free. Come and sit down, please just listen to me. Ain't never visited, but I'ma tell you about all of the crazy shit that I just seen. Water so dirty, ain't none of it clean. I seen the crying and dying and houses bound down, plenty children lay dead in the street. How can you look past the atrocities? Saying you don't know the issue just isn't enough. Look it up, that excuse obsolete. The youth and the elderly both is at risk, and for the rights they ask getting shot or just beat. America first, all that shit is just vanity. Just an excuse to ignore the insanity. Fuck all the people supporting calamity. Fuck Israel, fuck Fox News, fuck Sean Hannity. Who is the man to see? We need to stop it. If you ain't know, we spend billions to fund it. Using your taxes, it's straight out your wallet. Peace in the Middle East, but you all shunned it. I know it take more than a day, it take more than a week, it take more than a song, but I still gotta speak. It's been plenty of people whose stories I seen about they babies lay dead at their feet. Shit made me sick to my stomach, and we sent support for a prophet. I pray that an end to it coming, and hope it don't come from a rocket. Cause Israel holding these innocent people hostage, and someone gotta say they should stop it. Plenty of people speak out, let these people refound their home ground, but what we do is shocking. All I can do is donate and try to bring attention. It's one more thing gotta say, I'ma mention. All of the propaganda and the media all around the globe, they use the news as a weapon. So don't be a sheep, please take a stand, cause it won't stop till the people demand that it should end. Cause you can't make amends till you give all the people back all of the land. That ain't the solution, but genocide ain't. I don't give a fuck if it add to your bank. It's money that corrupt the people at top, then they feeding you lies so they life staying great. And you believe in all the shit that they say, so the shape of the country is staying the same. If you complaining about the state of your life, look outside, cause around we just add to the pain. Free Palestine, bitch.
I love you, Bobby.